another episode of Taro Duo. So, I'm Andrew, and with me, as always, is Connor. And today we are going to be talking about the various rivals in Pokemon all the way back to the beginning.
hmm Yeah, so a while ago, we definitely started off. I think we had an episode about champions, and maybe an episode about another like group of trainers or something. But we never really gave much conversation about the rivals, and so we thought that maybe we would kind of pull that together for the penultimate episode of this season. Yeah, I guess you might as well just start at the beginning with Kanto, and you have Blue. So Andrew, what are your thoughts on Blue?
I think that it's a good start to the general dynamic of how a rival should be. I
Mhm.
think that it's definitely it's definitely a situation that I feel like makes sense for the story of those games, and I think that they were maybe a little bit more on the they made them a little bit more on the cocky side
Yeah.
in terms of like the spectrum of rivals. And I would say that over time we've learned that we want a more balanced rival, but it's very difficult to make a balanced rival. So I think they did a good job not knowing really what to make, not really knowing what they should do because they didn't
hmm
have any experience, and we have to consider that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who feel like Blue is their favorite rival, and that's kind of because like a lot of rivals, especially like the recent ones when they're just like all nice and stuff and they don't really like those rivals don't really have much of a personality, but you can look at Blue and he's very confident, he carries himself well, and he's really a challenge that you have to surmount compared to a lot of the newer rivals where it's like, oh, it's just my friendly
Mm-hmm.
rival
Yep.
that, it's not really intimidating or anything. It's like, all right, yeah, I beat my rival. But when you beat Blue, it's like, oh, yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
This
I
guy had
think
it
that.
coming.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely another good aspect is that right out of the gate in Generation One, we already have a rival who goes through some character development
hmm
and becomes a better person and a better trainer throughout the games. And I think that's something that people look for in future rivals as they've continued to be in newer games. And I think that it's definitely a reason that people would say that Blue is their favorite rival or
hmm
just the best in general.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely like something that, like, this definitely happened in pretty much all of the later games, but something that I always think about with Blue, and that is really just a cool thing that they did in the first generation of games, is that in every gym, you would walk in, and on the statue, you could look at it and it would say, like, current winners, Blue. Blue has already won. So no matter where, what point of the game you're at, Blue is always one step ahead of you. And that kind of makes beating him every time, especially when he's, like become the champion. Like he's one step ahead of you, even beating Lance, if you can believe that or not. And so, like that kind of just makes beating him all the more sweeter and all the more of a kind of moral victory, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think what's definitely interesting about that is it is something which continues to happen. It is something that is present in every gym, in every region, except the Lola.
Oh yeah,
Is that is that you can go in and it'll tell you that whoever your rival is has already beat the gym.
that's interesting. Wait, does that happen in Hoenn?
I believe it does.
Huh.
And
Okay.
and the rival that they use for that is whichever gender character you did not pick.
Yeah, either Brendan or May.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I always forget that those are like really good trainers. Like I always like think that they're gonna be like Don or Lucas from Diamond and Pearl, where they just don't really do very much.
Yeah.
But okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
But yeah, so anyway, I really like Blue. I think he's one of the strongest rivals, because he just has a really good, a really cocky personality, but he does have a personality.
Yep.
And, you can kind of understand why he does the things that he does. He goes through character development. Like, honestly, Blue is probably the best part of the story of Red and Blue, which, there
Yep.
isn't really much story outside of Blue and Team Rocket. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I would definitely say that it was it was more in the adventure type of rival phase where I feel like what's gone on is over time there's been a transition from a sense that your rival is there with you on the journey to they just happen to show up, and I feel like that especially happens in maybe more middle generations like 5 and 6, and then they sort of figured out what was going on and they started to integrate them back in the story, so they sort of went one way and then went back.
yeah.
What I think is interesting about that is if we think about the rivals. So later on, of course, for the Let's Go games, um, it's less of a direct remake in the sense that there are some changes, and of course, one of those changes is that we now have Trace,
Yep.
and I think it's interesting because Kanto is the classic region that's been there from the very beginning, and Trace is very much a modern rival, where it's like a much friendlier rival.
Yeah, Trace is like the face of the modern rival that
Yep.
nobody likes.
Yep.
But yeah, so like when you compare Trace to Blue, it's weird because you see him in like the exact same places.
Mm-hmm.
He actually has like very similar lines of dialogue with Blue.
Yep.
But he's just such like they're like polar opposites. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning, like Professor Oak is like, "Oh yeah, like what's the name of your rival and your friend?" Because just to really drive home the fact
Mm-hmm.
that he's going to be nice to you throughout the entire playthrough. Um, but I don't think Trace has very much character development at all. The only like I don't really remember much about Trace. The only thing that I remember is that there's like a little cutscene, when you beat him as champion, where he like kind of clenches his fist and he's like all sad and stuff, and then he just like looks up at you and smiles and he's like, "Oh yeah, you win because you were better than me or whatever." But for that brief moment where he's mad at losing the title of champion, that's really the only character development I feel like he ever shows.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the three most recent rivals. So we have Trace, Hop, and How. You
Yeah.
could put the same line of dialogue and attribute it to any of them, and it would make sense, as
Yeah.
long as it didn't mention the region that they were from.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't say like Alola
Yeah.
or Aloha, that's the word,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah, no, they are definitely really similar. Just like all like happy go lucky, like everything's great. But we're gonna get to them later.
Yep.
Did you have anything else to say about Trace, or should we move on?
I was just gonna say it feels out of place
Yeah.
to have them in the same situation doing the same sorts of things that Blue was doing in the original games, and because the story is not written around that sort of rival. It's written around Blue as a character, right?
Yeah.
And in a sense, even like the physical design of more recent regions is much more based on the fact that you're gonna go through it linearly as a story. Um,
Mhm.
the layout of Kanto would not work for Generation 8 because there's so many different ways to navigate the region.
Yeah.
Because Galar
And
requires a
plus,
story.
there would be a game corner, and that's not
Yep.
allowed.
No,
We
can't
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 have
have that.
those. Yeah. Yeah, I
So
don't know. I guess,
yeah.
like, kind of to close on Trace,
Hmm.
like, I feel like kind of one of the biggest things that kind of tips you off to how different they are is so when you're in that building that Team Rocket was taking over, I can't remember the name of it, Silphco, and you're about to fight Giovanni. So Blue gets in your way, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go fight Giovanni, but but you know what? I'm gonna beat you first, just to make sure that there's gonna be nothing in my way, and I can beat Giovanni." Where Trace, on the other hand, he's like, "Oh wait, you're gonna go fight Giovanni? Here, wait, fight with me so that you can train your Pokemon and get stronger for it."
Hmm.
Like, it's just, I don't know. He just doesn't have a personality except to give you revives and just make sure that you're the greatest. And for some
Yeah.
reason, he just becomes champion.
Hmm.
It's just, I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't know how he pulled that off.
Yeah. I mean, it almost does seem like he's like your aide. He's kind of almost like your Team Yell in a way.
Yeah, honestly, that's a really
Like
good.
he, yeah. Like
Yeah,
he's not battling you because he wants to beat you. He's battling you because he wants to make you stronger.
yeah, I know. Like, man, it's something else. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, let's move on to Silver,
Mm-hmm.
who was not made in Generation 7. He was from good old Gen 2.
Yep.
And I definitely think that they were like, hey, Blue worked, so let's do Blue, but again.
Yep.
And then they kind of focused a lot more on, him being like really stuck up and rude and a lot less on character development.
Yeah. So they definitely just sort of amplified that very limited aspect of him in terms of being just a jerk and
Yeah.
a terrible trainer. And I think that overall makes him a weaker rival than Blue. Of course, Blue is the metric by which all other rivals are measured, simply because it was
Are
first.
you better than Blue or are you worse than Blue?
That
This is the
that's
question.
what it comes down to,
Mm.
and I think that Silver was worse than Blue. It was interesting how they gave him that story, how they gave him that backstory
Mm.
of being Giovanni's son, but I think that while it might explain his behavior, it still doesn't make it a compelling and interesting character.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like I mean, not Blue, Silver has a lot of parallels with Bead from Sword and Shield.
That's definitely
Just
true.
like they don't really have any consideration for what's right and wrong. Like,
Yep.
Silver literally gets his starter Pokemon by stealing it, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is so funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like this cop who like wants to catch him, but then that's never grazed on again. He just somehow
Yep.
gets away with it.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is from the perspective of the morality that that our culture seems to accept as typical. What Silver does as your rival is substantially worse than what the quote unquote evil teams have been doing in recent games. And I think,
Wait a minute. Oh my gosh, you're so right though.
yeah,
Like he actually like breaks laws.
yep.
Like man, yeah, Team Yell could never.
I think that there's been a transition in terms of the different roles that different characters play since Generation 2. And I think that having Silver as a rival in Generation 2 is sort of trying to fill a role that never really existed. And
What do you mean by that?
so I think that obviously the more recent games they've gone with the whole idea of having like some sort of evil corporation, and then also have an evil team that is sort of like carrying on the legacy of evil teams,
Yeah, but
but
doesn't really
then
serve
making
much
them
focus.
less menacing, and then also making your rivals less menacing. And I think that the deal with Silver is, I think they were trying to make them into something that didn't end up being a successful category in terms of like
Huh.
just the kind of person who doesn't really want to be your rival, doesn't really want to have a rival, just because that would imply some level of equality,
Hmm. Yeah.
with the player. And it's that sort of superiority complex that we see in Silver, and then we don't see it again, because I think Pokemon learned that sort of character does not work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I follow you on that. But like definitely I feel like Blue kind of did the same thing though. Like every time you went up to fight Blue, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna steamroll your Pokemon.
Yeah,
Like you're going to lose because I'm a better trainer than you are."
yeah, but I feel like for Blue, you get the sense that it's like a playful teasing kind of thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
and
Mhm.
I think that with Silver, you get the sense
He's
that
being serious.
he actually means that. Like if he
Yeah.
could beat
Honestly,
your
yeah, you might
Pokemon
be
up
right.
with his bare hands, he would, for the
Yeah.
vast majority of the game.
Yeah, no, like I agree. I feel like Silver doesn't think of you like a rival. Like
No.
he wants to beat you
Yep.
because you've beaten him.
Yeah, he's more of a bully.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's like he's a better trainer than everyone around him in his own eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and so like no one else is a challenge. And if you beat him, you just got really lucky. And if you were to play again, like he would obviously win.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. Which is exactly what Bede does.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that that's sort of what I think about Silver. So now I guess we can move on to Generation 3, which is interesting because it's the first time where we have the dynamic of whichever player character you don't choose. So if you don't choose the boy, then your rival's the boy. If you don't choose the girl, then your rival is the girl. It's
Yep.
the first time that exists as a mechanic, and I think that it's very good that they did it. I understand, like if previously there just weren't enough resources or whatever, so I feel like they did it when they could. I would have
Yeah,
liked to.
no, I agree with you. I do think that's a good thing to do. And like definitely because of how like well like characterized they are and like I guess how well designed they are. Like I remember back when like me and my brother would play like Ruby and Sapphire, we would always pick the boy. And so I just got totally used to the rival always being May.
Mm-hmm.
And just because May looks a certain way doesn't mean that she has to be a main character. And so yeah, I think it totally works out perfectly well. However, one thing that's kind of weird about the rivals is that at least in normal Ruby and Sapphire, you don't really get any payoff with them. Like you battle them a few times and then you don't really get to battle them again, like in the in the late game.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's only maybe 3 battles you get with them, like the first battle at the beginning, and then the second battle under the bridge that everyone remembers for some reason.
For difficulty,
Yeah.
because I think that generally the expectation is that your Pokemon aren't really going to be in that range. I think that the first time I tried to do it, I wasn't expecting it, and I think I had Pokemon in like the level 13, 14 range, and the May's Pokemon are level 18 and 19, I think. And
Jeez.
and they're not bad Pokemon either for that point in the game. So I got
Uh,
destroyed.
yeah, I mean, I haven't done that battle in at least a decade, so I couldn't tell you much about the difficulty on that, but I don't know. I feel like May and Brendan are definitely a lot more of the friendly rival sort, but I really they don't really pay much of they don't really add much to the story. They don't really develop all
That's
that much,
true.
if I remember right.
No, they don't. They start out kind of in the middle of the road. They're not like completely friendly, like more recent generations rivals, but they're not completely out to get you either.
Yeah,
And which
like
coming off of Silver, I can see why they decided to do that.
mhm. Like to be honest, I don't think that that means that they're bad rivals because I feel like they're not really needed in the story. Like the story of Hoenn kind of carries itself pretty well with all the natural disasters and
That's
stuff. So
true.
it's hard to just like stuff a rival in there too when you're already battling like all these different evil teams and focusing on the gym leaders and the gym challenge. Like
Yep.
fitting the rival in there too can be kind of tough. So to be perfectly honest, I think it works just fine without needing to include May and Brendan in everything. So even
Yeah.
though you don't really get much of a payoff with them, it's like they didn't really need to serve much of a purpose anyway because the story carries itself pretty well without it.
Yeah, and I even think that Wally did a better job in terms of being integrated to the story,
Oh yeah.
and then and just the way that he progressed as a character
Mhm.
throughout, I think is very well done. And I think that if they had combined those characters and made combined Wally and your main rival somehow, that would have been a very well made character. But they had to split it into two characters. They were just like, no, we can't make someone who's just that perfect, because then where are we gonna go from there?
We can't do anything more. Like I don't know. The thing with Wally is that where before with Blue and Silver, they were always one step ahead of you, beating all the gyms and stuff. You look at Wally, and it's kind of the exact opposite.
Yeah, you were always 2 steps ahead of him.
Yeah, we always start at a higher level than he does. Like we start at that level, and then we battle
Right.
him a few times, and we're always better.
Yep.
And then finally, it's Wally's last chance, in at the end of Victory Road to show you everything that he's done, and to finally just prove himself to you, and just really step it up, and be the better trainer. And then he loses, and I don't know if you ever get to talk to him again. I might be wrong.
No, I don't think you ever see him again. Um,
Yeah,
what I
so
what I
that kind of
really
sucks.
what I really like about that character development, though, is that we have a progression from not really being interested in being a trainer to being more interested in being a trainer and being a better trainer. And I really like that, in contrast to the majority of the Generation 6 rivals, where they start out interested and then their interest wanes over time. I don't think that's something that's as compelling of a character, because the point is to become a good Pokemon trainer, and so by having them go their separate ways, it doesn't really. It seems realistic. Like that's what's mostly going to happen is most people are not going to make it all the way through the gym challenge. As we've discussed before, like how many people do we think are actually like making it through the league or getting all 8 badges in their home region? We don't know.
Not too many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can't be too many.
Mm.
Unless you go by anime logic, where there's just a ton of trainers that make it to like the like championships.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I don't know. You can't really rely on the anime for
No.
everything. Because
you
there's
can't
some
rely on the
wacky
anime
stuff
for
that goes on there.
anything.
Yeah.
Because it contradicts the games so often, and even just one contradiction would be enough to make it not canon in the eyes of the games, which we've also discussed canon. So
So the point is just watch our other videos when
Yep.
you're done with this one.
yes, definitely.
But yeah, I guess to close on Wally, he definitely had the most character development out of all the rivals, at least so far.
Yeah.
Starts off as this frail kid who can't do anything by his own, and his parents have to watch literally everything that he does.
Yep.
Because he's a frail kid who doesn't know what he's doing.
Yep.
And then he catches a Ralts, and he kind of uses that and gets more and more Pokemon, becomes more and more confident, and can start to rely, and with his Pokemon, he can kind of work on himself, become a much stronger and independent person, and actually ends up being a really powerful trainer at the end of the game. Not good enough to beat you, not good enough to beat the champion, but a formidable foe nonetheless.
Yep.
Definitely developed.
Yep. He's like he's not good enough to win at the league, but he's good enough to like be in the running.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he made it all the way to
strong
the end of
competitor.
the victory road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like that's enough development that it's really impressive.
That's definitely true, and I think that if we think about Wally and then we compare him to right after that Barry, is a very different character, and I think that a little bit they went back to the I'm gonna say annoying in this case, because of his repeated thing about ramming into you and trying to find you a ton of money.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the first time that we see like a gimmicky mechanic applied to a character, and I actually kind of feel like it is a little bit too exaggerated because it doesn't seem really more like a character so much as like a sign, like there's so many signs in Pokemon, and you just read them and they just say the same thing over and over, and it makes sense because it's a sign.
So you're saying Barry always says the same thing over and over again?
I'm not saying that he's literally saying the exact same words over and over again, but I do feel like his character is a little bit repetitive.
Okay. I gotcha. I mean, okay. So obviously if you've watched a single other video on this channel, you would know that I like Diamond and Pearl a lot. And I don't know, I'm a Barry advocate. I think he's cool. I don't think he's the best rival by any means. But so he has a very strong personality. He's always running. He always wants to, be the first thing there. He never communicates what he's doing, and he's always, he's basically always in a rush.
Mm-hmm.
And so he crashes into you all the time. He does that sort of thing. But I wouldn't say that like he gets like he has like catchphrases like I'm gonna find you so much money.
Mm-hmm.
But he really doesn't use them all that much in the games, at least. Like I don't think it gets overused.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Like what were some of the things that you were saying about him? I guess I can like talk about him.
I think that overall he's kind of nondescript, and I think that works both as an advantage and a disadvantage. He's got nothing really good going for him and he's got nothing really bad working against him. He's sort of like if you just took like the default template of something and just went with that. That's the kind
Yeah.
of rival that Barry is.
I
Um,
mean, I don't know if I'd call him generic.
yeah,
Like, I feel like he's got a relatively strong personality. Like, like I said, he's always like rushing to do things, and he always wants to
yep.
be ahead of you and ahead of the game.
And yet he has time to go and get a Munchlax.
Okay, maybe he got it traded.
He
Maybe
just
he
got
just
him traded.
traded with somebody, or maybe he hacked it in. But I don't think he took the time to get a Munchlax.
You know what? If gym leaders can hack in all sorts of Pokemon, then just say the rivals aren't.
Yeah. Um, but so I guess kind of probably the best part about Barry is that he has a very strong moment of like character development. And so basically how it goes is you always fight him and you always win. And so he kind of gets down on that, but you're really the only trainer who's able to beat him. And so he continues to like rush on and move forward and everything. But then he gets assigned a mission to like go to a lake and investigate it, and he ends up fighting one of Team Galactic's commanders, and he loses, and he's very sad about it. He's like kind of like freaking out. And so he goes away, and then for the first time in the games, he kind of takes his time. He trains his team up as best he can, and then he actually meets you up at Mount Coronet for a rematch against that very same commander, and you do it in like a double battle format, and it's pretty cool. And so you guys win, and Barry's like, "Heck yeah, I did it! I'm gonna heal your Pokemon, and you can beat up Cyrus because I don't really have any affair with him. I've done what I needed to do, I guess." So I don't know. I think it's relatively strong character development because it kind of makes him reflect on his actions and kind of reevaluate what he needs to do. And kind of after that happens, I don't think he ever bumps into you again.
Yeah, I think that that sort of idea of like once they've served their purpose, they just get written out of the story. It is maybe a flaw, because
Yeah.
I think that there should be, it's something to do. They should be like rebattleable in the post game. They should like go back to their house or whatever. I don't know.
Well, wait, no, you can still battle Barry after
Yeah,
that.
yeah, okay.
But like,
Well then, since you can, then I'm revising my statement to say that's a good idea that you can.
yeah,
So
I mean,
if we
yeah, I
now,
think Barry was like the first rival that you could actually rebattle in the post game. Like, I think you meet him up at the Pokemon League.
okay,
After that's the next time that you meet him, and then after that you can rebattle him every weekend in the battle area.
okay, yeah, that is not something that I had done. I'm not very familiar with those games, so thank you for informing me.
Yep.
So sometimes that needs to happen.
Mhm.
So now I guess we can talk about Lucas and Don.
Oh yeah. Well, they're not really rivals though. I
They're
wouldn't
not.
call them that.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really. I don't think you ever battle them actually, and you're never really like, I guess, rivals with them. Like, I guess you could say it. Like, there's a couple times, well, maybe once, where you do a double battle with them and like save Rowan from like Team Galactic. But other than that, Lucas and Don is kind of just there to encourage you to fill out the Pokedex, kind of gives you tips and stuff on the early game. But other than that, that's all. That's about it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
even wish
really
you a happy birthday, which I think is really fun.
Yeah, I really feel like that's something that's interesting with them is that in a way they did ditch the concept that they had just created in the previous generation of whichever gender character you don't pick becomes a rival, because it isn't something that happens. And I think that they could have, and maybe they even should have done that. And because the extent that they are in the games is mostly just a walking tutorial, like you said. And I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of missing potential there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only thing with that though is if you make the other playable character your rival, it's really hard to give them a personality because in somebody else's game, they're the main character. And so if you give them a personality in your game, it's like, does that mean that the main character in this game has that personality? Like, it kind of just makes it kind of blurs the line between the two. So if you ask me, I think it's a little bit better of an idea, like if you have the resources to design a unique rival.
Yeah, I think that is something that makes sense. But then of course right after that we get Generation 5, where they go back to having a ton of rival battles.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh wait. So I did not play Black and White 1, but I have played Black and White 2.
okay.
Uh so I'm not really all that familiar with the ones from Black and White. I know Sharon's a rival,
Yep.
and I think that like the girl with like the green hat is a rival. I don't remember her name.
Yeah, so officially, according to Bulbapedia, I'm smart enough to take a picture of this beforehand. In Black and White 1, Sharon, Bianca, and N are listed as the official rivals.
Wait, why is N a rival?
Because he shows up multiple times and tries to be. I don't know. I think he should be considered an evil team leader.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But I guess you can't have two evil team leaders, even though you can, because they already did, because there were already two evil teams in Generation 3.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
So, but maybe you can't have two evil team leaders of the same evil team?
I don't think that that's a thing. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe he's rival / champion / evil team leader.
Yeah, so basically, he's like Blue in terms of he can do it all except one. There's one thing that he can't do. You know, the thing that Blue can't do is be an Elite Four member, and can't be a evil team leader. And then if we look at and can be champion, rival, evil team leader, but not Elite Four.
Oh.
And
well, I mean, and also another thing that they have in common is that they can never beat you.
that is also true, but that is also canonically true of all of the rivals.
Yeah.
That's just part of being a rival, is that they will never actually beat you, unless you're just a terrible Pokemon player and you lose to them. But canonically, you beat them, and eventually you will always beat them. Unless you like abandon a playthrough.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess we can we're kind of running out of time here, so we can probably go through them relatively quickly. I know a lot about Sharon in Black and White too, but how would you describe him in Black and White?
I would say that it's another sort of generic rival. And I think that thinking through that, I think it's intentionally generic though, because of course he goes on to become a normal type gym leader.
Yeah.
He's just sort of there, and I don't really have that much else to say about him other than the fact that he's just sort of there.
Sort of there. It makes sense that he's a normal type gym leader.
Yep, he does what a rival needs to do. He gives you some items every once in a while. He gives you some information every once in a while, and that's what he does.
Huh. Okay. All right. And what about Bianca?
She helps you a lot more, gives you a lot more information, because she is a research assistant. I don't want to get this wrong, but
Like, but you still battle her a lot.
um some sometimes, not too much. Um,
Hmm.
her
Okay,
her,
so
her
it
big
seems
thing
like
is like the Pokedex.
yeah,
Is that she's trying to like work on that, and
it seems like she's very similar to like Lucas and Dawn then from the past game.
yes, but you do battle her sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny that they're both like research assistants.
You know what? I guess they just liked like that, and they kept doing it.
Yeah, true. All right, and I mean, you already shed some light on it. Like, how often do you battle in?
I
Like,
believe, um, I want to say, including the champion battle, I think there's like 4 or 5.
wow.
It may be as low as 3 though. I am not sure. But between
Yeah.
all of them, there's a lot of rival battles,
Hmm.
and they just sort of seem to happen and just be a regular occurrence, which is definitely a cool thing, because you're going to get more XP from those battles than you would just like random average trainers. You're gonna get more money than you would from just random average trainers, and so it is sort of like an XP share for things that aren't XP. It's like
I
an XP
guess.
share for money, because they pay better than them.
Yeah. I mean, you might be right, but I don't know if I like the rival
Yeah,
oversaturation. Like, I feel like when you end up with, like, maybe it's,
I would say it's about the most that it can be without being oversaturated.
yeah. Okay, okay.
Yep. So then, what
All right.
about Hugh?
Oh, yeah. So I think Hugh is a pretty good rival. Like, to be honest, I feel like they went back to their roots. They looked at Blue and they were like, okay, we're going to do this, but a little different. So Hugh is kind of vengeful. Like he spends the pretty much the entire game saying like, "Oh man, Team Plasma stole my sister's Pokemon, and I'm never gonna forgive them. I'm gonna find them, and I'm gonna take them out. I'm gonna get the Pokemon back, and I'm gonna fix everything." Because he's mad at himself because he wasn't able to do anything to stop it,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of so he does this, and he looks out for it, and eventually he actually ends up finding the Pokemon, and it's entirely different than it was before. It evolved, and it doesn't. I don't even think it remembers his sister anymore, and so he kind of goes through that.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't. It's not a great moment for him, but eventually he comes out of it, and I think the whatever it was. It's the evolved form of Purloin, but I can't remember what the name of it is. What?
I wouldn't be able to tell you either. I can't remember
Dang it!
at this
All right,
point.
well, whatever that Pokemon
Yeah,
was, it
I can picture it.
eventually it warmed back up to the sister, and everything kind of worked out a
Okay,
okay.
good to know. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, that I don't really have that much to contribute, because I only have 2 badges in that game currently. The game that I'm
Hey,
currently
you know
playing
what?
through.
You got to start somewhere, and I
Yep.
mean, I guess I can comment on the other three rivals from past games. So, like you said, Sharon became a gym leader. He's the first gym leader in that game in Black and White 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think he kind of developed pretty well. He turns into a bit of a mentor, but not in like a sort of like talks to you all the time and tells you things that you already know sort of way. Like he, what he does is so you can call him on the X transceiver, and he'll basically tell you things about type matchups and about abilities, which is honestly kind of nice. Like if you have like a dual type, he'll tell you everything that it's weak to, everything it resists, and he'll also tell you what every ability does, which is really nice because a lot of the descriptions aren't very descriptive. So
That's true.
I think Sharon was very well implemented.
Yeah,
And then you've got
I think that
Bianca.
over the course of over
Mhm.
the course of both games, he goes through some very good character development. If they'd put that into one game, it would have been very good character development for one game. You know,
Yeah, yeah, no, for
probably
sure.
even better than Wally.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't really know where his starting point was, but he definitely turned into a very informed individual who, like I said, was kind of your mentor if
Yep.
you used him, and it was optional. You could have fought him at the gym and never talked to him again. I'm pretty sure. Well, maybe a few times, but and yeah. So anyway, Bianca gives you your starter, and you can call her, and she'll tell you about your Pokemon's friendship. And I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to Generation 6 and the many rivals in
Oh
Generation
yeah.
6. I think that
Here we go.
I guess even if each individual one isn't very good, just the fact that there's so many of them, like if you add it up how good each of them is, then Generation 6 is the best generation of rivals, just based on like a pure sum total. But it's
Yeah,
distributed
maybe.
among so many that so many not very fleshed out characters that most of them end up quitting the challenge, which is realistic,
Oh,
but makes for a less good story. Obviously, you want your
yeah,
rivals to
kind of
stay with
sad.
you. Um,
Hmm.
they, their characters very much fit the things that they go on to do, and it does make a lot of sense. They have between them they have a lot of different personalities, which does make sense. But I think that overall it is unfortunate that in terms of like what happened to them. I would say that in terms of like the like would the rival, like your main rival, whichever one, whichever character you don't choose, is the
Mhm.
last rival to take things really seriously, because
Huh.
after that we move into Generation 7 and we have How.
And then we have how.
Hmm.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, you might be right. Mm.
And I think that that is good that that they're able to do that, if that's like the one really good point that I can give them. Although it shouldn't even be a point that I should need to give them. It should it should have just they should have just kept doing this. But to
Yeah.
give
I
them
mean,
the
there's
point
so
of
many of them
right.
that like there has to be obviously one of them has to take it seriously, right?
Yep,
They
that
can't
that's
all
true.
just be your friend.
Yep, yep. All the rest of them are your friends, and they even like when you first start out, they're at like some table, and they're just talking, and you're just one of their friends, one person in the friend group. Which is a cool concept. It's like, hey, look, this is the first time in a Pokemon game that you have like more than two friends. What a novel
Yeah.
concept. Um, but then they aren't very good friends, I guess.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe if they kind of lump the whole friend group together instead of trying to uh what's the word? Trying to establish each and every one of them as their own unique person, because like at that point you're really like I said about Hoenn. So like
yeah.
I think May and Brendan worked because the story was good enough that they weren't really needed as much. Whereas here, there's so much focus on the rivals that there's hardly any time for the story.
Well, there are a lot of story events, um, that happen, and this is where the story really starts to ramp up and take over, as like
Mhm.
and Pokemon becomes more more towards the side of like a interactive novel than unlike on the spectrum, they get closer to that side of the spectrum.
Mhm. Like
And
okay, I guess my point is
yes.
that like there's not really enough like I guess there's always time for more, right? But if you
That's true.
add more, that means there's a lot less time of just kind of nothing happening, which might seem like a bit of a bad thing, but I think like definitely a lot of video games need to have nothing happening at some point so you can kind of catch up with everything.
That's true.
But if
I would
you
say that that Gallard, they by the time Gallard rolled around, they started to figure that out more, and they gave you more downtime. But Callisto seemed to be pretty action packed in terms of constantly things going on. What
yeah.
I think is interesting is the role that they give actually one of the gym leaders, Karina, and I kind of feel like she's sort of like a Sharon with no version 1, because she's already a gym leader.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the game, there is no sequel game, there is no prequel game, but she does some of the things that a rival would normally do, like teach you about mega evolution. And
Yeah.
I think that she was a unique character. That the fact that a gym leader could be so involved with the story was a big innovation in Generation 6, and I kind of wish that they would do something like that again. Because obviously, it doesn't have to be a gym leader again. They
Yeah.
do it with champions plenty, you know, but champions are supposed to be like basic basically viewed as like the gods of Olympus until you reach that level, and then they're not so much anymore because you beat them.
Yep.
Um, but
Yeah, no, I see what you mean by that,
yeah,
though.
but
I agree
but
with
gym
that.
leaders are like more like they're more on a human level because throughout the game you're beating them. You're
Yeah.
you're like among them in the you're portrayed as among them in the difficulty, in the
Yeah, I feel
ability
like the
level.
main difference between like gym leaders and like Elite Four and champions is like with gym leaders, you're expected to win.
Yep.
But when you get up to the Elite Four and stuff, it's like it's not really an expectation anymore. It's a lot more of
It's
a challenge.
surprising. It's seen as surprising when you win against the Elite
Yeah.
Four.
But like take Hulbury and Sword and Shield.
Yep.
uh Rose is talking to you and he's like,
Yep.
hey, like you go down and like beat Nessa at the gym and then we can go out to eat.
Yep. Yeah. It
He's
is
an
pretty.
expectation.
It is pretty expected. They're trying to push you, but not so hard that you know, then but not so hard that you lose, right?
Yeah.
Um. It's
But yeah,
yeah.
How is very friendly.
Yep.
I don't like. Okay, I also haven't played Alola. I'm
That's fine.
sorry. I don't have a 3DS that charges properly right now. So, but from everything that I know about How, he's very nice to you the entire game, and he doesn't develop at all.
That is an accurate statement.
Hooray! I know so much about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's very static. He's very proud about where he lives, and I don't know. Well, I feel like you should probably be doing most of the talking for this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think How is continuously just like excited to be a Pokemon trainer, which
Yeah.
becomes less and less appropriate of a feeling as the game goes on and as you develop with them, supposedly as he develops with you, because it's sort of like he's continuously wondering what it's gonna be like, and excited about like every new thing that he sees. It would sort of be like if Harry Potter was still fascinated by Gringotts by books 6 and 7. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like you shouldn't really be like still like so enthusiastically excited
Yeah,
by
like
that
you
by
should
that point.
probably know what's up at this stage
Yeah.
of the game. Yeah.
Yep. And on a certain level, I get it because there are things happening and changing, story wise. I haven't played the original Sun and Moon, but I have played the Ultra games, and there are plenty of story events, just like every game, that happen, around like the, I'm gonna say the later trials. So obviously Generation 7 is the gym with no gyms, but the equivalent to like the 7th and 8th gym. A lot of things are going on
Yeah.
at that percentage of the way through the story, just like all the other Pokemon games. So I can understand like the like being excited about that.
Mhm.
And then
All right.
of course, more of a companion, not really that much of a rival, would be Lily. I don't
Oh yeah.
even know if you battle her ever.
Hey, is she considered a rival?
No, not according to Bulbapedia. So,
Okay.
but she does sort of take on the rival's role of giving you useful information.
Mm.
Um, it continues debate, of course, about whether it's too much. Um, I which I guess it makes sense because Hal is just not. Hal probably doesn't even know how to do most of the things. So
Doesn't even know what
it
he's
wouldn't be
doing.
in character for him to be telling you things
Yeah.
because they would be made up.
Yeah.
He'd tell you made up things.
He'd be like, "Oh yeah, dude, believe me. Like,
Yeah.
Steel is weak to normal. Just like trust me
Yep.
here." Wow.
No, that kind of
All
thing
right.
would be. He'd be like, "Yeah, let's just try this," and then he would lose a battle and be like, "Oh, that didn't work."
Darn it,
Um.
man. But I sure am glad I'm a Pokemon trainer. Let me
Yep.
tell you.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
It
all
does
right.
list Gladian as a trainer, and we are running out of time. So
Yeah.
I'm not really gonna talk about Gladian, because he's
Gladian
in a
is a
weird place.
guy with very spiky hair,
That is true.
and the end. That's
The
that's
end,
him.
and that's his character as much as
Anyway, yeah, and I mean, looking at Galler, we can probably just like only talk about Hop because I
Yep.
feel like
We talked
Hop is
about
the
Beat.
rival, and I guess like maybe you can make an argument that like Beat is a rival.
Yeah, well, we already talked about him previously, and I'll
Yeah.
just go over Marnie real quick. Um,
Oh, okay.
she's it's another one of those rival turned gym leader stories. Which is thing about this one is it happens during the plot of the actual games for a change, um, and then and is also associated with the evil team because the evil team is just about liking her. Also, given that her brother is one of the gym leaders, um, until he quits and she takes over the gym, adds that interesting dynamic. There's this part where she shows you the way into Spike Myth, which is literally like 5 steps away from where you
No one else
previously
can
were.
figure it out.
No one else can figure it out somehow. And apparently that's just the roadblock that's like no one can get past the 7th gym.
It's a closed garage
Yep.
door. What can I do?
It's not even all the way closed because it doesn't work.
Wow. Um, but yeah, I do think Marnie is a relatively strong trainer. I don't
Yep.
really understand why Team Yell has such a special attachment to her. Um,
I don't know.
but anyway, yeah, like I said, we're kind of running out of time.
Yep.
So I feel like I've definitely got a decent amount of things to say about Hop.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't like Hop because he's very annoying. He pops up all the time
Yep.
and he tells you a bunch of useless information.
Yep.
Um, but I feel like when you look past that and you just look at like the growth of his character, I feel like he's a relatively good rival. Because he starts off, being your friendly friend and everything's great. He's
Mhm.
happy to be a trainer. And then, okay. So he's very happy. Everything's going great for him. And then he battles Bede, and he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna destroy this guy because I'm a really good trainer, and because like he kind of thinks he's invincible, because he's Leon's brother."
Yep. That
And
is definitely a dynamic
yeah,
that we see
and
going
so
on.
he loses to Bede, and so all of his confidence kind of goes through, like just gets driven into the ground. He totally just like changes up his team because he's not confident in it anymore. And he's just like losing to everyone at that point. And then something changes. I can't remember exactly what changes, but I think Leon may have like talked to him or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. But whatever happens, it kind of turns his confidence around, and he's like, okay, I can do this. I believe in myself. So he's kind of back in it. And then you beat him in the finals. And so,
But he's happy to see you win.
yeah, no, he's definitely happy to see you win. And I think you battle him one other time, which is in front, like when you have Zacian and he has Amazonta, or the other way around.
Yes, with the tower, it's like technically post game, but there's like still story going on. That is true.
And I mean, he still has development to do.
Yep.
And then, so he beats you. I mean, you beat him, and he's like, okay, I don't think I'm going to be a Pokemon trainer anymore. I'm just going to be a professor.
Yep.
And so he does that. And hey, it's character development. I don't know if it was warranted considering the point of his journey at that point. But you know what? It's character development nonetheless.
I think it at least makes some sense. What I was gonna say about a story arc, which you told pretty well, is that I would say that it's like the gym leader Volkner, but just spread out over the course of the entire game, right? Because they took that concept that they already had, and they're like, what if we made that the rival instead of just
that is interesting.
some random
like,
endgame gym leader.
The will to battle at one point.
Yep.
Like he doesn't. Yeah, I remember. At one point, it's like, oh hey, I don't think I can do this.
Yep.
Like I'm not gonna battle. You can do it. Don't worry.
Yeah,
like,
I think that what's interesting is we have this dynamic between you, who are set on continuing, Bede, who gets kicked out, and Hop, who doesn't really want to do it anymore. And by the end, it's you who stuck with it are essentially rewarded by, winning the finals, and and Bede sort of gets a cop out by becoming a gym leader. And that's like the ultimate thing. It's like I guess maybe that's just like a common thing. It's like, well, if you lose, or if you don't lose, but if you come in like second place, then typically we see if there's a gym leader about to quit, and we put you in their spot, because it's a pretty common thing. That
the way that Opal was trying to recruit people, I don't know about that.
Yeah. But and we do have to remember that the Galar League was a bit more corrupt than the other ones. So maybe it is not an example of that, it's just a similar thing that happened. But that then doesn't really explain Marnie's story very much. So it is interesting that they've sort of created this dynamic. It'll be interesting to see where Rivals go, because it's going to be a while before we get another one, because we're going to have these Sinnoh games to play through. And obviously that's not going to introduce any new rivals, because we have our, unlike the Let's Go games, we've already been shown that it's just going to be same old Barry. And we'll see what happens. And
maybe we'll mix things up. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So, just so you're aware, right now as we are recording this, we both have things to go to. So that's gonna be it for this episode, and we will see you in next week's episode, which is going to be the season finale. We're going to be talking about our top 10 human characters. They can be rivals, gym leaders, champions, whatever.
Yep.
And that will be next time, but for now, we need to go. So, Tower Duo out.